Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, I talked to Michael Ettinger, who released a new album under the name Setstill. Michael is a prolific songwriter who released his third album, Transcriptions, in June. On top of releasing that record, Michael released an album of songs written over the pandemic, as well as a series of B-sides that corresponds with each of his previous full-length releases. We got to chat about his music and the immense project that took to catalog these songs. It's Michael of Setstill, right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well, Joe. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule this, which I appreciate because I got to spend the day watching high school students shoot shotguns at things. Because it was the trap championship for Minnesota, and I had to drive to Alexandria for work.
Well, that kind of scared me personally.
It was a time. I haven't seen that many guns in one place.
Yeah.
So, just some real Minnesota stuff going on. But You're here now. So let's start things off. I've been asking people kind of, what is your elevator pitch when people go, maybe not elevator pitch, but what's your short little log line when people go, oh, you make music, that's cool. And you have to now describe what you are to people. What is that sentence or that couple of sentences you tell people when people ask what you do or what kind of music you make or.
Yeah, it's tough. I've been trying to figure this out for a while. And I'm already pretty introverted, so I'm not testing it out a bunch.
Yeah.
And I haven't released music in a while, so I was like, I just felt weird about it. But basically I'm producing music, I'm writing it, and doing all of the things that you have to do to make it happen. So all the parts from recording to writing, and then I guess whatever you want to call it, arranging, and then producing, mixing, and then mastering. Now I've done that, and so all the things really. But then I because of the way music has changed, I can do it alone, which is kind of crazy. And a lot of my sounds, I don't have I'm not set to a certain genre because I have the freedom to make a whole bunch of stuff. So
yeah, you do it all in the box. The magic of computers means you don't have to worry about having the house band anymore.
Yeah, the magic of computers.
So you said you haven't released music in a while. So we're here today to talk about the album you released as Setstill.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, take me through kind of your history with music leading up to now, because when did you start making it? Did take me through those formative years that took you into the world of doing everything you can to write, arrange, edit, record, mix, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I guess I was never really planned to do music in this sort of way, but. So 5 years ago, 5.5 maybe, I downloaded Logic at the advice of a friend who showed me the ropes on how it worked, and I was like, oh, this looks fun. So then once I started getting into it, I was started getting really into it. And there was a lot that I had been going through that the format of music made it easier for me to sort of express things, and also it sort of felt like a good medium to talk about more emotional issues, but as the sort of I was already kind of an introvert, sort of loner kind of person, so then I would just sit on my computer and just make stuff all the time, all sorts of different stuff. Whoever some of my favorite artists that have inspired me, I would try and not necessarily copy their sound, but it's what are they doing that I could try to do? What different elements can I incorporate? And then this is just a rabbit hole. It goes down and down and down. And then once you release your first album, which I did, it's called Losing Sleep. I then you get into this whole game of like, now everyone's listening to this. I was just making this for fun, but now everyone's listening to it. And so then, and you know, for me, like issues that I'd had with mental health, it became like a more of an accentuated struggle. So then I made a second album that was like really a bit more conceptual and like unified as like a thing, but then it was like a lot darker. And I think the experiences I had around releasing that made me feel just really with releasing it, and also in my life at the time, made me feel super, super weird about the whole thing. And I was like, all right, let's just take a minute. And so that's why it took so long, because I was like, well, if I'm going to release music again, which I was going to, I just didn't know how to do it. There's a lot of questions you got to ask, like, why am I doing this? Who is listening? What's going on, like, with me? And then I want to make something that sounds really good, like the best, you know. I don't want to like begrudge people through my music just because they're friends with me or whatever. I want it to sound good. I want them to be proud of me, you know?
Yeah.
So then I just like went through that process for like 3 years and tried a whole bunch of new stuff. And then I was able to finally come out the other end with the album. So.
Okay. Were you playing music before, you know, you got into recording then too, or was it just kind of like a mutual growth of like playing? I don't know if you started with guitar or piano or whatever, and then just kind of merged the two, or one lead to the other?
I was sort of like around music, and I had like learned a little bit about drums and piano and guitar, but like really, really, when I started writing my first album, I didn't know anything. I was just sounding out like the progressions and how everything should go, because I had no idea how to play any instruments really. So then that became a mutual growth as this has gone on. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. What was that, Losing Sleep? What year did you put out that first record then?
That was 2017.
Okay.
In the spring. And then the next one was 2018, like early 2018. And then this one was 2021 in June. So
yeah,
good amount of time there.
You said with that second record, it was just kind of was weird. What about it was weird to you? Was it just the fact that like this is something you were doing, you know, for fun or like for a cathartic purpose, and now you're asking people to listen to it? And what was that thing that made it too weird for you? You don't have to share too much if you don't want to, obviously.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot that I wouldn't want to share, just because, you know, but I would say the main thing is I didn't really understand, like, when I wrote the record, it seemed like I had sort of missed the mark in a couple ways. Like my fidelity of sound was kind of off, but then like how I was viewing myself was like really, really negative. And then, yeah, it was just like a bit too carelessly vulnerable, if we could say that. Like, and I'm not on the level of like, we need to control what people are seeing, but it's like, man, to just like do this without thinking about it at all, without even realizing what's going on with me mentally, is like not a good thing to do. If you're experiencing like mental distress, it's like, you don't want to be doing like super erratic things without understanding, or like it may not be super healthy to do that in the first place. So
I gotcha. In like along with writing and releasing this music, were you performing live? Because like, or were you playing in bands as well on like as on top of that, or was it just always kind of this is more of you like in your studio working on it?
I played live a total of 3 times.
And I caught one of those performances.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a good time.
It was a good time.
I have had trouble with this because performing music, I always felt like I had to have performers with me, like other musicians to play the parts in my songs. It's like, how many musicians am I going to need? Who am I going to call on to play these shows? Do people really even want to do that? Maybe not. So then do I just go out and play my tracks and then do whatever I can over it? Could, but then it's like, this just feels weird. It's definitely just been me more in the studio, but I'm trying to work away right now. And also just like, let go of some of that where it's like, oh, I'm playing over a track. This is not cool. It's like, who cares?
Yeah. Well, because like when I saw you perform at Brett Carey's basement for a little, like the little gathering he had, it was just, I think it was just you and a MacBook kind of trying to do all the soundscaping on top of, just you and whatever instruments you were playing. It was almost long ago, and we've had a whole lifetime of pandemic in the interim. I know. That night's a little hazy, despite the fact that like I was drinking coffee in a basement with some friends. Like, yeah, listen to some cool music.
I think I just did like my guitar and my voice, and I think that's sufficient. But I could also do shows where I was playing, making the sounds on the spot. It also became an issue of like gear, right?
Yeah.
I don't need a lot of gear to make the music that I have, and gear's expensive, and I'm broke. I'm so broke. So whatever I've got is whatever I have to like work with. And, I'm definitely going to like work on being more comfortable and setting up some live performances. It's kind of nice to go back through all my old stuff because now I know the different things that I might try. It's definitely upcoming in the future, but I wouldn't say it's a total priority, but I'm going to give it a go for sure.
Absolutely. So with those previous releases, was that just released under your name, or is this Setstill moniker that we see now, is that a new thing for you?
Yeah, it's a new thing.
Okay.
To, I guess, show how little I thought about releasing the music, I just released it under my first name, which was Michael. It's like, then to the first question, it's like, you're talking about what music you make and people want to look you up. It's like, yeah, just search Michael. There's no way for anyone to find you. There's nothing that's like unique about that. So in this day and age, it's very important to have a name that you can at least be searchable by. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what the name would be. And once I found a name that nobody else is named, that I was like pretty cool about, I was like, sure, let's just go with this.
You got a lot of like notebooks full of just like band names. You just like quickly go over to Spotify or Bandcamp just to see if it's
seriously
how searchable that is.
And like how many people have had this idea before me.
So then now let's talk to me a little bit about then the record, because a few weeks ago you released Transcriptions, and it's your first record in a few years. So talk to me, like take me through kind of the album a little bit. Like how long was it just starting off in the making for you? Because you had that time between your second record and this one, and you said you want to take a little bit of time to like figure stuff out. Were you working on this material as you were just taking that time, or was it more of it became ready, you just felt right and you just wanted to jump into working on this third record?
Pretty much as soon as I finished, maybe like a few months after I finished, or I'd released the second album, I was already working on new music. But I was giving myself a lot of time to like weed out and make decisions about songs. It we got 2019, 2018, 2018, 2019, 2019, 2018, 2020, I think. So what I would do is I would make the songs. I was just constantly making a bunch of songs, and then I would write lyrics for them, and then I would sit on them for a long time and see how I felt about them,
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of re-record lyrics that I didn't like, and that would retool the album as I was working on it constantly. And then the stuff that I felt good about lyrics wise, then I was able to feel like really good about it, which was important to me.
Yeah, no, totally. What you were kind of talking through like the years of those production diaries you posted on Spotify last week, I believe, is when they officially went on Spotify. They've been on you have quite the prolific just SoundCloud account, which like major respect. Like
it's all there.
So are those production diaries then you like all of those songs you were working on that just didn't make the cut for transcriptions?
Each one is organized by their time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So there's essentially a B-sides for each album.
Oh,
And,
okay.
Yeah, that's why it's like labeled by the different albums. So then the transcriptions one, I still had to cut down a lot of it, because it's weird because it ranges from like, you have to discern like what's worth hearing and what is not. And maybe a lot of it is not worth hearing, but at the very least, like there was a lot of music that I did almost completely finish, but then I just like it didn't fit in the album,
Mm-hmm.
or like I wasn't down with it for whatever reason, and then it's like, well, it would suck like if I didn't ever release this.
Yeah.
And it's not that, it's not the same like an album where it's like curated and I've worked on it for a super long time, but the scale of it I think is like important
Mm-hmm.
for me to acknowledge, just because I did work on it do so much work on it.
Oh, absolutely. And I do have questions in a little bit, so I don't want to jump the gun too much and
You're
dig
good.
into those. Oh no, yeah. So listening through transcriptions, like given the fact that you talked about a little earlier, like kind of the autobiographical or the way you used it to kind of interact with yourself and process and kind of handle things, kind of talk to me about the story you're trying to portray through this record, because it definitely feels like a whole arc. And so by the time you hit the title track and then 7 trombones, you kind of are hitting kind of ahead, and then you wrap it up with Alive and Well, and so everything just kind of feels like it's come to a close. So talk to me through that arc that you're taking the listener through with it.
Yeah, so I guess the arc is, weirdly, a lot of the album is about like both writing the album and and coming to terms with like and like understanding my own mental illness. So it's like, in that way, it's like mindfulness. So I guess the way I was thinking about it was, it's a bunch of different stories that sort of layer over each other to tell all sorts of different stories, because the songs sort of represent different aspects of that experience. And I know that for people in my life and other people who struggle with mental illness, that it like doesn't, I've been very careful and tried really hard to pinpoint some of the things that are significant about that. So so the way it starts is like, essentially, is like a cry to not release the album. And then it's like, but then I'm like, oh, I'm really scared to do that. And then it's like, what about all these things? Like, the status of like relationships and the way things have played out in my life or for other people's lives. And it's like, this is such a normal thing these days, where it's like just not hearing from people for a long time, or you're sitting there wondering, like just lots of thoughts of self-doubt and such. And then to like extremities, each song represents a different thing, but like that would be the first three. And then Heart and Soul is like, I'll just go through each one.
Okay.
Heart and Soul is like this dichotomy where if you have been living with mental illness and people know about it, you feel this pressure to be okay. And so you're putting out your best foot forward with like wholehearted goodness, but then at the same time, it's like it counters with like you having to hide it because you don't want to let people down. So then this is where you're, heading into the bathroom, freaking the fuck out. And, and that's like this weird dichotomy. So then the next track is Personal. This puts this in the context for me of like the Christian world and evangelicalism, where it's like, why am I like just the way like mental illness or like people are treated, that experience, and being like pissed off about it. But then it's kind of childish. So then it's just a depression because we're without people and we're without God. So it's very difficult to connect in this way. So No Vacancy is like just the epitome of being completely alone in the world and all that existential dread. And then it goes into a song that represents like depression in its entirety. And talks about how like that relational tension, it's like, I would like to apologize,
Yeah.
Just it's not necessarily any particular situation, just like in general, like I'm sorry for being like so depressed.
Yeah.
And then it's like, man, then a switch flips and the realization happens where instead of looking inward, I look outward and start to see myself from a different perspective. And I'm starting to realize all these things. And then it comes very quickly. So then I realize I'm a hypocrite. I sort of acknowledge all the things that have been going on. And then in transcriptions, it's like, this is the whole thing. It's a song that's very, very metaphorical in almost each line. That's pretty much about what this all has been about. And then the lesson to be learned from that is that it's like super, super important to practice kindness, like towards yourself and others, and forgiveness is like super powerful. It can do all that. But then I include a spiritual entity in there. We call that God, but I specifically didn't name the Christian God on purpose, just because I don't think that's the only way to go about learning that sort of lesson personally. Although it's a very, if that's the lesson to me, that like is absolutely life-changing, to not seek revenge on yourself or another person. And then Seven Trombones is just about how the whole thing is redeeming for me to be able to do it and speak about it in this way. And I like despite what all of the things, I'm still able to, you know, write this song basically. And then it's like, you know what, live and let be. Everyone, we feel different all the time, like everyone goes through things. And then Alive and Well is just like, it's too complex. Just breathe, man.
Yeah.
You know, keep it going. Don't uh you know, that's like the way to be. There's no reason to sort of try and grab hold of everything all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and feel like you have to figure it out right away, because it'll take time. So just breathe.
You talked about transcriptions as like as kind of the you know the track that encompasses, obviously it's the self-titled, and something that struck me about that song listening to the record, because like you know, once you get past, I'm like My Iron Curtain, once you get past that song, like it feels, the record almost becomes very ethereal to me, and the way you produce it, and like the way you work as a producer and as a mix and recording engineer, like, you know, big wide, it's your kind of music is something it's very foreign to me, just because I like hardcore, I like angry guitars and shouting. But so like when I hit, you know, every time I hit transcriptions, that song is like the most almost antithetical song when it comes to production style. It's very raw. It's just it's you and a guitar with some flourishes here and there. You know, you had some synths and some melodies, and there's a piano and some other things. If I'm remembering off the top of my head, even though I just literally listened to the record like an hour ago. Were you planning, was that kind of like by design for you when working on this record, that like you wanted the you know, the penultimate track to be this very condensed, you know,
No.
like, okay.
Yeah, so that's definitely something I did, decision I made on the spot. The original track that had the idea for it was pretty cut back, where it was just me and my guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to cut it back even more, and I had been sitting on this ukulele progression for a while, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I just ended up, after, we'll say it's the last song I wrote, after just putting it down and writing the whole thing out, I didn't really feel like there was any better way to do it, just because it is the moment in the album that is the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it felt right to just strip it all the way back, and I'm not uncomfortable with that. It's just that I don't usually, you know, I do like to make the big arrangements and big wide sound. So definitely not doing that when the whole record is like that is very intentional, but it was not like planned. We'll say that.
Yeah. Does a lot of your work then start, do you typically start with like, you know, a voice and a guitar and then just kind of replace the guitar with other instruments, or is the way you write very, I mean, as someone who, you know, you use all the colors in the color box, essentially all the crayons and the 64 pack with your synths and stuff, is that you start very like, you just pick and go, or does it start, you know, very you and an instrument very small and you build?
I think earlier on, I would use the instrument more. I don't think I'm like a talented enough guitarist to write songs on guitar like that. But piano, I'll definitely start on piano. And I'll usually start with the sound. I'll just like go through and make or find a sound that I like and build out a small thing. And then sometimes I'll build out the whole track before I even think about vocals, because vocals are so important that I kind of want to get them to fit the track but sometimes the vocals will lead the track. There's no like one specific way that I'll do it for sure, but I'm definitely more of a piano guy than a guitar guy. I will say that. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to me who else you work, because you say, you do a lot of this yourself, but I mean, if you look through Johnny Darko is someone you worked with on a track, and then I saw on an Instagram post, I should have written them down, but
That's okay. I remember them all.
You worked with some other people, to lay some additional keys. There's a Rhodes on there and some other stuff. Who else did you work on with this project?
So the Rhodes is mine. I bought it from Caleb Anderson.
Okay.
And
who I was ed classes with, so I know Caleb a little bit.
Yeah, I was really happy to buy it from him. I was able to use it to write a bunch of stuff. And I definitely would like to use it in the future. But at various moments, we'll say like the whole group of Johnny, Benji, Johnny H. I mean, their groups, their whole circle.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely worked with them to like get a lot of feedback. First and foremost, that would be like the main thing.
Okay.
Because I just like didn't have the confidence in myself, which, it might stupid perhaps, but like it was true. That was really what was going on. So I worked with Johnny on Pity and Shame, Johnny Darko, and he wrote the line, like his part. And I also used like his drum samples, which was nice. Couldn't have done it without Johnny there for sure. And he's actually taught me a lot about making beats and stuff. He's really talented at making beats. On Monsoon, I utilized almost everyone. Our friend Leighton, she made the sample using this low Casio. She put her voice in and then just like played it, and then we recorded that, which is the main sample, which is just the dopest sample.
Mm-hmm.
And then Johnny Hall was there too. He quickly laid down some rhythm, which I was able to include in there. And then I ended up working with Johnny Darko, technically later, to help do the lyrics. And then all the places where you hear clarinet, which would be, I guess it's just 2 songs. It would be Pity and Shame, which Johnny was on as well, and Different. Benjamin Peterson, he did the clarinet. He's an amazing clarinet player. He'll be releasing music if he hasn't been going for that already, where he's got some amazing clarinet arrangements. Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I was like, it's not quite a saxophone, but it definitely has, the reed instrument quality. So respect clarinet. Shout out clarinets, because you don't hear those enough in popular music. So
no, but I think they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's and then Alive and Well. I worked on that with Luke Aaron to do the drums and the bass, which he showed me a super rockin' way to produce bass, and he wrote a super sick shuffle for it. So
nice. So then moving on from the record to we kind of touched on a little bit, which was, you put out those production diaries, but you also put out a whole record of material called COVID Cuts. And talk to me the difference between those two for you. Cause like I was listening through them. I wasn't listening. I didn't have time to listen through all of it, unfortunately.
Don't worry about it.
I was like, man, I don't have this, like, as much as I want to, like, it's just like, it would all just go on one ear and out the other at one point. But
I was even getting sick of going through it myself. I was like, ugh.
Oh, I can only imagine trying to catalog something as massive as that. Cause I saw an Instagram story earlier today of you talking about how much more like material you're staring at.
Yeah. I do have more material, I keep making more too.
Which is impressive because like each of those like production diaries are like an hour long worth of like tracks. So it's like you got a lot of stuff. But to you, what was the difference between that collection that is COVID Cuts and then the production diaries?
Yeah, so the funny thing is I was kind of already writing my second album, or another album, before even finishing Transcriptions.
Okay.
And then once I got to releasing Transcriptions, I was like, there's no way I'm going to finish this album. But it was like a really cool idea. And then I realized, I was like, these are all COVID songs.
Yeah.
I made all of these during COVID, and it would be nice to make a little shrine to them in this little collection. So it's like a half album, maybe like a sister album, where it's just like more recent stuff that I had worked on. And the idea was going to be, something about space.
Yeah.
Use a lot of synths.
Yeah.
So it's not finished, but it's finished enough to enjoy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because I was impressed with both COVID cuts, and then listening through what like whatever the first production diary I clicked on was how finished a lot of those songs were. Because I expected like a production diary to definitely be a little rougher on the edges. It's obviously completed enough that you feel like it's at least worth listening to beyond yourself. But it's, I'm like, these could have been, easily included with, a little more touches on Transcriptions, or even COVID cuts, or another one of those. Is this, you said earlier, those production diaries are a lot of B-sides to each album you released. So talk to me about compiling that material then to release to the public.
Yes. So that you say they are finished is good to hear. I did go in on almost each of them and just make sure that do some final touches and master them so that they were at least listenable. But at the same time, it was a production diary, so it's all stuff that were like I made in production to be songs. So it's like more about the fact that I've been growing and growing as a producer. But I did go back in and fix a lot of the stuff. Some tracks I liked a lot and made them sound much better than they originally did. And that was just a redeeming thing for me, because I felt so bad that I never finished a lot of them. So compiling them, it just sort of started when I was actually hanging out with my roommate Luke, and I just started playing some of these, and we're just like why do I have all these? And why has nobody ever heard them? And I was like, you're right. And honestly, I wanted to move on from all of the things that my whole library. I didn't want to have to go back over any of it anymore ever again. Because as where I'm at now is so much different than where I began, that I just wanted to dump it essentially for anyone who wants to come through it. So it is a lot, and it's like there's no expectation that people need to listen through all this stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that I worked on with other people. It's like they get to listen to that now. It's a lot of stuff that I just misjudged, or I used to make electronic music. That's a lot. There's some of that in the Losing Sleep B-side, and yeah, it's just fun. Just some fun stuff. And then a lot of it's not fun. There's a lot of music that I didn't release because it was too depressing.
Oh,
so that's on there too.
In the production diaries or stuff you've okay. So how much time did you spend then going through all of that stuff?
A lot of time.
Or was it just a sort by date and just kind of, we'll group these here, group these there, we'll just...
Yeah, well, I already had a bunch of my bounces, because I've kept everything. We'll say I've hoarded everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't organized, so I had to go through and organize it, and then I would go back into projects and organize it and go back in. I didn't really catalog how much time it all spent together, but it was definitely a lot. But I was also being very quick about it because I was like, I'm not going to worry too much about making sure that everything here is perfect.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of like going into the old projects, making some quick changes, and then bouncing it out, and then just ordering it however I wanted to, which is like semi-curated. It's not by date or anything, but it's not like curated. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I tried my best.
you didn't focus group it to make sure song 6 and song 7 flowed well with. It's
kind of haphazard.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, and this was the question I was trying to formulate before, but you said this is just stuff you wanted to just be done with and move on from. So this was, a lot of it was also just kind of a way to purge kind of your back catalog, so you can just did it like free up some mental energy for you to focus on new stuff, or was it just like like you said earlier, just I needed it gone, or I wanted at least people to hear it?
It's the emotional release of accepting that I was like wrong about the way that I was thinking about the whole thing.
Okay.
So it's like, the only reason all these songs were cut so much in the first place and that I wasn't releasing more music was because of like how much shame I had internalized.
Yeah.
And so like by purging it, it's like, we're not doing that anymore. And here it all is. And we're moving on. So it is all the things.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that people would listen to it. I know that's just too much.
Yeah. Did you, with like going back through it and what and what little bit you did, because obviously you're not going to spend, hours and hours and hours trying to fine tune and edit. Did you find some like stuff that you're just like, all right, I'm going to hold on to this so I can add my magic to and maybe release in the future? Or was it just like, all right, it's good, we'll go, you're checking the box and moving?
No, it's all gone. I did find one though that I forgot to release on the COVID cuts. But something cool about doing that is that now going in to work on music, it's like just clean, fresh start. It is helpful if you want to start doing it and thinking about it in a new way, to not hold on to any of those old things and rework them, because I know now I can just make more things.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to do that, because also along with that, with the old project thing, I'm working sloppy. I'm working, it's really like disorganized, kind of a mess. I have to clean it up, and that's annoying.
Yeah.
It takes like twice as much time to fix like shoddy work
Yeah.
than it would be to do the work right in the first place. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I was wondering, because like, yeah, if it's an unorganized catalog full of just whatever, it's easier to just start fresh at this point if you didn't feel like it was good enough to keep originally.
Yeah, I guess. And also it's done enough.
Yeah.
I guess.
So then the stuff you did keep, are you still planning on putting out some more production like diaries, or is there just stuff that you're just like, all right, it's going in the recycle bin of the computer and gone? Or
I think I'll call back to some of my, it's nice also to go back through my old stuff and be like, oh, that was a great idea, maybe I should retry that. I'll probably, if I want to do anything sort of like that, I'll just redo it. But yeah, I don't have any more diaries to share, and I'm already working on my next project and just where I'm going to do moving forward, which is I'm just doubling down on working. So and working hard. So I would like to. I'll release like an EP soon enough here. I think releasing it in the smaller chunks is helpful to. I don't want to. That feeling of like holding on to music for so long is such a bad feeling. I don't ever want to do that again. But then I also would like to work on producing music, like doing a lot more collaborations and working with other people to try all sorts of stuff. So that's going to be what I'm doing moving forward, mainly.
Okay. Well, since we're kind of already talking about it, like what else are you like hoping to get out now that you have, the record out? And you said you wanted to, collaborate with more people, and you're already working on that next project. And I know we talked, 30 minutes ago at this point, on like you want to start playing more shows out since you've only played the handful. Kind of what are those goals you want for Setstill or whatever, your musical world to be? Kind of as you come out, we can come out of the pandemic, we can see music again and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess something that was really striking, or something that I was inspired by during the pandemic, I guess would be Gorillaz and the way they were releasing music. Or I guess, yeah. So they essentially had this Song Machine album where they were releasing one at a time. And each of them was just this different. They were all completely different. And each of them was like working with one or two other people, like main artists. And I was like, I would like to be more like this, where I'm just making whatever with whoever. Mm-hmm. And it's not as serious. I'm not saying that I would never release an album again. It's just that I'm sort of questioning, or I'm going to shelve the whole album thing for now, just because it kind of seems like it would be valuable for me to just start doing more consistent output. And albums, a lot of times they take a lot of time to work on and think about, and then people got to listen to the whole thing. But a short EP is way easier to consume, casually, And I just want to make it also goes hand in hand, because I don't necessarily have anything left to say. I guess I do, but not anything I would want to put in an album format. So
yeah,
we'll get there. But I'm just trying to have some fun, to be honest. I haven't had a whole ton of fun. I just want to make some cool songs, and try new stuff, and also just get out there a little bit more, so that I can have those opportunities to try new things, and grow.
That's all you can hope for, is just have fun,
Yeah, and keep going.
Well, if people are looking to connect with you online, listen to your music, find you on the social medias, how can people do that?
Yeah, your best bet for connecting with me and seeing what I'm up to is on Instagram. It's just Setstill, one word. And you can message me, reach out. I'm down to talk about music, down to do music. Otherwise, you can just go ahead, give me a follow, and wait till I release some more stuff.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me here today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Joe.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.